You're listening to Edge Radio TV. The views and opinions expressed in this program are that of the hosts or guests, and not the Edge Radio Network or its advertisers or affiliates.
Well, hello, and welcome. This is Oscar Hines. Welcome to Ninja Talks here on Edge Radio TV. I am absolutely delighted to have in studio with me today the amazing Kimberlane. How are you, Miss Lanier?
I am well.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you. I like the amazing Kimberlane. Sounds like I should have a cape.
That's right. Well, yeah, you have superpowers. We might as well start exuding those all automatically. No, but I will say that when I first met you, I automatically, and I'm very much into energy, and I automatically felt this energy and this confidence and this sense of self-assurance that walked in the room and preceded you.
Well, I guess you have to be some sort of confident or assured of who you are with a bald head.
I think you wear it well. You have I have an egg-shaped head, so they called me Bullet Man when I shaved my head. God. I was done with that.
It was over.
I'm gonna cover it up. So, but it's funny because I think when women see each other, women are very observant. Women will look you from head to toe in a nanosecond, and men are kind of a little bit slower about that. So you're saying that confidence precedes you, so you have to have that going in, right?
Gotta have it going in,
I love it. Well, that's a beautiful thing. I was in the business years ago of modeling, acting, and all that kind of stuff, and I used to love watching how people present. But I want to give the audience an opportunity to get to know you, because I have, and you're moving into some pretty unique spaces, and we've been talking about some things that we can do to sort of help our community. So let's delve in a little bit on some of those passion projects for you.
So, homelessness is my ultimate mission. Everything I do is to prevent homelessness. Okay, and so there are several ways I go about it. Mental health, because some people leave their homes due to the extreme pressure of the upkeep for whatever reason. Women coming out of violent experiences,
yes, that's
domestic violence, sexual violence, childhood trauma, and reentry. And I know most people think about re-entry as someone coming out of prison, a physical prison, but I'll be 53 this year, and it feels like I'm just re-entering my life, through a series of marriages, one abusive marriage and one physically and the other in another way, and then just getting my feet under me and then moving ahead to take care of my kids. Didn't have time to think about the things that defined me, but I didn't touch those things. And now that the kids are grown, I've been able to go back. It's been a 10+ year process of me being present in the trauma.
Yes.
Touching it, looking at it. We talk about depression these days as if it's a bad thing, and as if it's not a part of life. So I even sit in depression and say, I don't want to get up right now. Let me just lay here and feel this and deal with it. And I just think that is being present in life. So the models that I've created is to help men, women, young men, young women deal with who they are. Because when you're okay with who you are, then you'll be a better person, a better parent, a better spouse, a better entrepreneur, a better whatever.
Yes. So I remembered I used to say or make this statement to my kids when they were younger. And I tried to frame it so it did not sound judgmental. I was very careful about it not sounding judgmental, but what I'm about to say will sound a little judgmental, you know. So, you know, the disclaimers out there. Otherwise, Kim will kick my ass. I'm like, hey, wait, what? Hey, look.
I'm less violent.
Okay.
Now, notice I didn't say non-violent. I'm less violent.
Less violent.
Less violent.
You might give somebody a backhand every so often. I get that. I do that myself sometimes. So I remembered I would see a homeless person.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are in the car, well-fed, nice car, the whole nine. And I would say, guys, the only difference between, and I'd like you to kind of speak to this a little bit. The only difference between that person and the executive driving the fancy car are the series of decisions they made that led them to the place that they are.
I somewhat agree, and here's why I say somewhat. I discovered Dr. Ruby Payne, and she defined poverty in such a manner that I can't get away from. You know, you can coach people into making good decisions, right? That ultimately lead them to opportunities where they're not on the street. But we talked about emotional legacy. So how you view yourself, what are the conceptualized and visualizations that were handed down to you from your parents, your culture, all of that goes into where you are now and how you deal with it. Everybody wasn't able to manage the trauma that they may have experienced as a child, even if they didn't know it was a trauma, because children that are abused, that's their reality. So they don't know they're abused until they run into somebody who hasn't been abused.
Exactly.
Right?
Like a fish in water that's not aware of the water that surrounds them.
That's right. They're not drowning because it's second nature to them to swim. It's normal. And so I think it's how we first manage our thought process. And that's what Ruby Payne talks about. You know, you can take somebody, that lottery ticket winners. That's why if they haven't learned how to manage money, then they're going to be broke even after winning the lottery, because they're going to spend it. They don't know how to invest. They don't know how to do all of these things. Whereas if you teach somebody how to think better, a better process to thinking, how to socialize, how to make valid decisions that can move their life forward, and they don't have any money, you know, eventually when you add money to it, they're going to be real successful because they have all their feet.
That's right.
Whereas if you do the opposite.
Exactly. So I'm in 100% agreement with you on this idea that their coping mechanisms, what tools they have, and unfortunately, those tools are not readily available in impoverished communities or in dysfunctional families. So is there a way to imbue a child with even though you can't control their environment, but is there a way to imbue these young people with some form of a defense mechanism that helps them to cope with these issues that they're going to invariably face?
I find what works for me. Now, I grew up in what is termed the hood or whatever, and I think you and I had this conversation before.
Yes.
How I give back is I show up and I answer my phone. That's the one thing that matters. I don't really care about their attitude. I do, but I don't. I'm not offended when they're offended with me. You know, if I have to show up and I don't have a conversation, that's great. I'm there. And I find for me, being an advocate, a series of just showing up. A series of remembering something like a birthday, because you'd be surprised how you could get caught up and people forget you. You know, a series of just reaching out. If they don't answer the phone, I'm not mad. I send a text. Now, after a while, I then am able to set boundaries to say, if you don't reach back, then I'm going to stop here, because now you have a history of me showing up for you.
Correct.
You have a history of me hearing all your stuff. Everybody else doesn't have privy to what you talk to me about, you know, helping you get resolution, but you have to help me do the heavy lifting of you.
Yes.
So
I love that.
To me, showing up is just invaluable.
Yeah. Because there's a power in just being there. There's a power in letting people know you care. And it sends a I guess, a subliminal, if not obvious, message that you matter. You matter. And a lot of, I guess, homeless people, that's what they suffer from, not feeling like they matter.
That's exactly what they suffer from.
Yeah.
I remember I used to like going to the Galleria, and there's a certain door I use. I go through the Neiman Marcus thing because it was just easy to park across the street.
Sure.
So I'd park in the Dillards, and there was this guy who was homeless, and he was there every time I went, and I went about once a week, right? And so I would start, and I'd sit down and talk to him. So the first time I sat and talked to him, he could not believe that I wasn't just giving him $1 in his cup.
Right.
That I sat and I learned his name, and he told me his name. Then I learned that he could play classical piano.
Wow.
So then he would start sneaking into Herman Hospital downtown. You know, on the if anybody's ever been there, there's that piano on that floor, and he had the guard timed. So he knew he had about 3 minutes of playing before the guard would come and kick him out.
Wow.
So he would let me listen to those recordings.
Wow.
So I learned that due to him not having glasses, he was not able to get his TWIC card to do offshore, you know, the opportunities that missed him, just all those things.
Yes.
And so every week I would sit down and talk to him. And one thing that dawned on me, he was a vet. And I'll never forget it. It brings me to tears every time I think about it. But I had invited him. It was coming up on Veterans Day or something. I said, I'm going to come back and take you out. Where do you like to go? And he said, Cheesecake Factory. I said, I'm going to come take you to Cheesecake Factory. And I said, I'm going to pay for your dinner. And he said, no. He said, well, I can't go with you tomorrow. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, it's going to take me X amount of days to get the money because I can't let you pay for my meal. I want to pay for it. So I said, okay, because I understood that he's a man.
Sure.
Even if his situation dictates otherwise, he is a man, and he still had those instincts. So I said, okay. And I said, well, what time should I be here? And he looked at me and he said, Miss Kim, I am not conscious of time. What time is it now?
Right.
I'm going to be here. Where else am I going to be? And for the first time, it dawned on me that he's not even cognizant of time or even what day of the week it was.
Right.
Like the things that mattered to me,
that's right,
they stopped mattering to him.
And we saw a little bit of that when COVID happened, because I truly did lose track of days. I mean, it was weird. I was like, is this Tuesday or Thursday? And it didn't matter. But no, you're right. I remembered having an experience with a gentleman that reached out to me when I was at another radio station and literally just contacted me, and I said, how are you communicating if you're homeless? He said, oh, well, I have a cell phone and I go to the library. That's how I get internet. And that's what he did. The downtown library, I finally met that guy. I brought him to my station. I interviewed him. And it was an amazing conversation because just like you said, here you had a concert pianist. I had this guy that was a genius in all sorts of different areas of life. But you have people that they lose confidence and faith in who they are or what they're supposed to do while they're on this planet, and they suddenly just fall into these lower rungs of society, if you will, and they stop trying. So how do we get them to try? How do we get them to fight back, to keep pushing forward?
Well, to be honest, everybody doesn't want to try in the sense that we think they should.
Yeah.
I let people be. I only want to help those who want the help that I am offering in the way that I'm offering it, because we're not going to reach everybody. You know, I met a couple. It was a couple, and they were on the streets, and he had a successful business and helped them get set up again. He eventually got back into a home, and the paying the bills, and when business was down and slow, it just got too hard. So they voluntarily went back to the streets because it was just easy. And even the homeless community is a community. They watch out for each other. I had right before COVID hit, there was a young lady, and I won't call her name. I was able to get her in Catholic Charities because she was a female veteran, and then eventually she got her own room. But she goes, and she was able to distinguish like the homeless that are truly homeless on the streets in the tents, and those that were in the shelter. So she made sure that the resources that were needed got to who needed it. And she was my navigator. She helped me navigate those distinguished communities on the streets, because I don't know. All I know is I have these resources. Yeah. And so she helped me understand that not everybody is seeking to get in a building because of what they've experienced in a building and the pressure. Because remember, you're dealing with mental health issues.
That's true.
My reality, I'm not saying that I don't like when people say that they're crazy or they're this, because just because their reality is different from mine does not make it worse or bad.
Right.
And so my empathy kicks in only when it's necessary. People ask me, how do you gauge your emotions? Well, I have to get real with myself. Do I want to do this? Does this make me feel good, or is it really doing good for my target?
Yes, that's a great mission, and that's really a good way to frame it. So folks, we are talking to Kimberly Lanier, and this has been a great conversation, and the passion that you have, I love it. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Edge Radio TV, edgeradiotv.com. Take a quick break. When we come back, I want to really just sort of define some of the things, Kim, that you are really going to be zeroing in on in this upcoming year, because there's some exciting things that are unfolding. Yes. So just want to chat about that. So folks, we'll be back in just a moment here on Edge Radio TV. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. This is Ninja Talks here on Edge Radio TV. I am joined by Kimberly Lanier. We have been having a conversation so far that I love, because you're talking really about a problem that not only the mayor of this city, but mayors in every city are it's on the front burner of their agenda. I just heard recently that there are several homeless camps here in Houston that are being eliminated. That they're going to go in and clean those up. Where are those people going to go? What's the solution to all of this?
Homelessness is a huge issue because it's broken down. Just like there are communities within the homeless community, you have your vets,
Yes.
who may have seen wartime. So that brings in PTSD, that brings in mental health issues. You have those who were incarcerated. And that segues into the community of people that I'm looking to help. Foster care is a huge thing in Harris County. It's huge. In Harris County, Houston Harris County alone, in just Region 6, which is just Harris County, 82% foster care. 62% that are going to age out in the next year will age out with maybe homeless.
Well, right, because they have nowhere to go after they age out.
Right. Well, and foster care is a huge system. There are programs like the Payout program that gives resources to provide housing and school when you age out. So it doesn't have to be over, but it's so huge. I mean, how do you get the information to those who've experienced like being torn away from their family, right, through whatever abuse and neglect? So you have the trauma of that. Right. And then you have the trauma of just being hurted. And I hate to use that word, but that's kind of like what it feels like because it's a system. Right. So then you have to there's just not enough programs, to be honest, to address all that. So homelessness, I know we look at all the beautiful statistics and say we're eradicating it. No, it's always going to, I'm a pastor. Christ said that the poor always be with us.
Yes.
So hopefully from generation to generation, we have people like me who want to reach back. Yes. Because I was 6 figures in homeless. Wow. So homelessness was not because of money. The initial homelessness was, right, but just a series of bad decisions just had me in a pickle. Sure. And so imagine these kids coming through a system through no fault of their own, and they have to figure it out.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so that helps me because the beautiful thing is I'm not necessarily boots on ground anymore. I've always been a resource navigator. You call me and I'll figure out the resource that you need to go to, and I'll knock on the door until they give it to you. Sure. That's just who I am. So I get to segue that into apprenticeship programs that I've developed, and I have them. I'm now having those programs vetted with the Department of Labor, so that it could be a certified program. Mm-hmm. So I have training models and some MOUs with some organizations that I can't announce just yet, but they it's going to teach financial literacy while putting these young men in trade programs and young women, because the insurance model and the real estate model is for it's not exclusive by gender, but the welding and construction, I focus mostly on the men with sure, that. Sure. And those are 6-figure trades.
Absolutely.
So God has blessed me to finally come up with a model to still not move away from homelessness, to look at ways to prevent it. And He's blessed me to meet people like yourself, yes, who introduce me to other people who can be boots on ground, yes, so I don't have yes, to be. So mentorship, apprenticeship, focusing, redirecting our energy on trade. I came from oil and gas, and the lighter hue people are good at bringing their children to work with them during the summer on a construction site.
Yes.
And yes, so I think that we should get back to introducing trades. And education is wonderful, don't get me wrong. I have nothing against college degrees, all of that kind of stuff, but everybody doesn't want the college degree. They want to get right to the money. Yes. And the trade allows us to do that. Absolutely. And so I've been fortunate enough to develop some programs that are getting traction, so that developing a trade house where they can live there and go through the trade programs and go right into apprenticeship with unions and job stability.
I love it. I love that. Well, I think that is the way to solve a lot, because somebody that goes into a quote unquote blue collar trade could raise college graduates to change the world. And that's the power of recognizing that you meet people where they are. And truth be told, like right now, the reason we have this oil crisis in some states around the country is because of a lack of truck drivers, because those truck drivers are staying home because they're collecting unemployment, which makes no sense, but it's causing gas shortages all over the different states. So it just speaks to this idea that these are crucial parts of our economy. So just in the few minutes we have left, Kim, there's some things that you can really enlighten people on in a talk show platform. Tell us about what that looks like.
So my platform is called Roll Call Freedom, and being a pastor, crisis chaplain in the community, I found that, and especially the show before ours talked about the COVID and people's response. I think that we should develop a way that gives people the freedom to respond to life and crises, give them information, but don't make them have to follow the blueprint that you gave them. They can pull the nuggets and pull out what works for them. And that's what Roll Call Freedom is. It brings people like myself, and we have dialogues with other people who've gone through some things, who may be late bloomers, who may have experienced some hiccups in life, some crisis, some trauma, and talk about how they overcame. And if you can pull those things, everybody's not meant to drive on the fast lane. Some people like that right-hand lane close to the exit, so if they get nervous, they can exit off and regroup. And we have to give people the permission and freedom to do so.
Yes, without judgment.
Without judgment. Yeah. Wholeness is the goal, and healing is a lifelong journey. And how you heal is totally up to you.
Yes.
If you can pull from my story and use that to heal, great. But my story does not have to be the end-all, be-all blueprint. You don't have to do it exactly like I did it.
Yes. I love that. I love it. I love the way you said it, the way you stated it. One of the things that I've grown to appreciate as I've gotten more gray hairs is when you meet somebody that has walked the path, that they're not talking about it theoretically, but they're warriors with battle scars. And the power of those scars is the ability to mentor others and hopefully navigate some of those potential pitfalls. So that's beautiful. So how do folks stay connected with you? How are they getting engaged?
Well, so my Facebook name is unique. Well, not just Facebook. All my social media platforms is the same name. It's Uhuru Wingi, UHURU Wingi. People ask me, where did I get that name? That name means freedom and abundance, and that's what I'm about. Freedom on your terms.